Today, we explore the book of Genesis chapter 30. This video will include a reading first from the King James Version, followed by a textual commentary of the chapter. If you're tracking, let's start. And when Rachel saw that she bare Jacob no children, Rachel envied her sister, and said unto Jacob, Give me children, or else I die. And Jacob's anger was kindled against Rachel. And he said, Am I in God's stead, who hath withheld from thee the fruit of the womb? And she said, Behold my maid Bilhah, go in unto her, and she shall bear upon my knees, that I may also have children by her. And she gave him Bilhah her handmaid to wife. And Jacob went in unto her, and Bilhah conceived, and bare Jacob a son. And Rachel said, God hath judged me, and hath also heard my voice, and hath given me a son. Therefore called she his name Dan. And Bilhah Rachel's maid conceived again, and bare Jacob a second son. And Rachel said, With great wrestlings have I wrestled with my sister, and I have prevailed. And she called his name Naphtali. When Leah saw that she had left bearing, she took Zilpah her maid, and gave her Jacob to wife. And Zilpah Leah's maid bare Jacob a son. And Leah said, A troop cometh. And she called his name Gad. And Zilpah Leah's maid bare Jacob a second son. And Leah said, Happy am I, for the daughters will call me blessed. And she called his name Asher. And Reuben went in the days of wheat harvest, and found mandrakes in the field, and brought them unto his mother Leah. Then Rachel said to Leah, Give me, I pray thee, of thy son's mandrakes. And she said unto her, Is it a small matter that thou hast taken my husband? And wouldest thou take away my son's mandrakes also? And Rachel said, Therefore he shall lie with thee tonight for thy son's mandrakes. And Jacob came out of the field in the evening, and Leah went out to meet him, and said, Thou must come in unto me, for surely I have hired thee with my son's mandrakes. And he lay with her that night. And God hearkened unto Leah, and she conceived, and bare Jacob the fifth son. And Leah said, God hath given me my hire, because I have given my maiden to my husband. And she called his name Issachar. And Leah conceived again, and bare Jacob the sixth son. And Leah said, God hath endued me with a good dowry. Now will my husband dwell with me, because I have borne him 6 sons. And she called his name Zebulun. And afterwards she bare a daughter, and called her name Dinah. And God remembered Rachel, and God hearkened to her, and opened her womb. And she conceived and bare a son, and said, God hath taken away my reproach. And she called his name Joseph, and said, The Lord shall add to me another son. And it came to pass, when Rachel had borne Joseph, that Jacob said unto Laban, Send me away, that I may go unto mine own place, and to my country. Give me my wives and my children, for whom I have served thee, and let me go, for thou knowest my service which I have done thee. And Laban said unto him, I pray thee, if I have found favor in thine eyes, tarry, for I have learned by experience that the Lord hath blessed me for thy sake. And he said, Appoint me thy wages. And he said unto him, Thou knowest how I have served thee, and how thy cattle was with me. For it was little which thou hadst before I came, and it is now increased unto a multitude. And the Lord hath blessed thee since my coming. And now when shall I provide for mine own house also? And he said, What shall I give thee? And Jacob said, Thou shalt not give me anything, if thou wilt do this thing for me. I will again feed and keep thy flock. I will pass through all thy flock today, removing from thence all the speckled and spotted cattle, and all the brown cattle among the sheep, and the spotted and speckled among the goats. And of such shall be my hire. So shall my righteousness answer for me in time to come, when it shall come for my hire before thy face. Every one that is not speckled and spotted among the goats, and brown among the sheep, that shall be counted stolen with me. And Laban said, Behold, I would it might be according to thy word. And he removed that day the he-goats that were ring-straked and spotted, and all the she-goats that were speckled and spotted, and every one that had some white in it, and all the brown among the sheep, and gave them into the hand of his sons. And he set 3 days' journey betwixt himself and Jacob. And Jacob fed the rest of Laban's flocks. And Jacob took him rods of green poplar, and of the hazel and chestnut tree, and pilled white strakes in them, and made the white appear which was in the rods. And he set the rods which he had pilled before the flocks in the gutters in the watering troughs when the flocks came to drink, that they should conceive when they came to drink. And the flocks conceived before the rods, and brought forth cattle ring-straked, speckled, and spotted. And Jacob did separate the lambs, and set the faces of the flocks toward the ring-straked, and all the brown in the flock of Laban. And he put his own flocks by themselves, and put them not unto Laban's cattle. And it came to pass, whensoever the stronger cattle did conceive, that Jacob laid the rods before the eyes of the cattle in the gutters, that they might conceive among the rods. But when the cattle were feeble, he put them not in, so the feebler were Laban's, and the stronger Jacob's. And the man increased exceedingly, and had much cattle, and maidservants, and menservants, and camels, and asses.
Let's now review the contextual commentary in a literal and historical application. Here is the Genesis 30, which details the expansion of Jacob's family and the beginning of his wealth. This chapter highlights a dysfunctional family. It is about superstition and using mandrakes to procreate, and stripping bark of trees to make animals fertile. It is a story of opposition and a story of redemption. It is about a God who functions within the dysfunction, making his divine plan among dysfunctional people, giving God the glory. We witness this dysfunctional family in the births of the 12 tribes driven by envy and cultural pressure to bear children. The sisters Leah and Rachel engage in a fierce competition. Rachel gives her maidservant Bilhah to Jacob, resulting in the births and future tribes of Dan and Naphtali. Leah follows suit with her maidservant Zilpah, who bears Gad and Asher. A bargain for mandrakes between Leah and Rachel, considered a fertility aid. Finally, God remembers Rachel, opening her womb to give birth to Joseph, the 11th son, showing how God works within the midst of failure. While man does his worst work, God does his best work. Just to recap, Jacob was an ancient con artist, tricking his older brother's Esau blessing of the firstborn. Jacob flees for his life from home, fearing for his life. He meets God in Bethel, goes to the home of Laban, falls in love with Rachel, the youngest daughter, works 7 years for Laban, who was the master con artist. On the wedding night, Laban takes his oldest plain-looking daughter Leah into Jacob's bedchambers. Jacob is shocked. Laban then tells Jacob about the custom of the firstborn among the daughters in marriage. Jacob works another 7 years for Rachel, for a total of 14 years for the youngest daughter Rachel. It's a chapter highlighting themes of jealousy, divine sovereignty, and provision. The chapter is divided into two main narratives. The first narrative is the birth of Jacob's children through his wives and maidservants. In chapter 30, Jacob gets 2 wives plus 2 maidservant slave wives. Jacob was not good at interpersonal relationships. His first wife Leah is fertile and bears male children. All the first wife Leah wants is her husband's Jacob love, but Jacob only had eyes for the second daughter Rachel. Chapter 29 of Genesis, verses 31 through 35. And when the Lord saw that Leah was hated, he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. And Leah conceived and bare a son. And she called his name Reuben, for she said, Surely the Lord hath looked upon my affliction. Now therefore my husband will love me. And she conceived again, and bare a son, and said, Because the Lord hath heard that I was hated, he hath therefore given me this son also. And she called his name Simon. And she conceived again, and bare a son, and said, Now this time will my husband be joined unto me. Because I have borne him 3 sons, therefore was his name called Levi. And she conceived again, and bare a son, and she said, Now will I praise the Lord. Therefore she called his name Judah, and left bearing. Leah gave birth to 4 boys, Reuben, Simon, Levi, Judah. While giving birth, all she wants is her husband's love. God is already creating the 12 tribes of Israel with the birth of these 4 sons. When Rachel saw she was infertile, and with no children, she says to Jacob, Give me children, or I will die. Rachel in Hebrew means beautiful. Jacob mentions to Rachel, I am not in God's place. Rachel devises a plan to give her servant maid Bilhah to Jacob to have a child, then placing the child on the knees of Rachel. According to the Code of Hammurabi, laws regarding foster or adopted children, specifically statutes 185-191, established that an adopted son could not be demanded back if he had been raised as a son and taught a craft. This was a common practice, as what happened with Hagar and Ishmael. All this time God is creating for the future the 12 tribes of Israel through these boys. Jacob has a son named Dan, which in Hebrew means tribe. Second son named Naphtali. Then Zilpah, the second maid slave, gave a son named Gad, or in Hebrew, troop comes. And also Asher in Hebrew, the meaning for Asher is happy. The story of a bargain for mandrakes between Leah and Rachel. Considered a fertility aid, it was a fruit grown in Mediterranean regions, also known as love apples. As per the bargain for mandrakes between Leah and Rachel. As Jacob comes home tired from the field in evening, Leah meets him and says, I hired you for your son's mandrakes. And then Jacob lay with Leah. By this time, Leah and Jacob had a marriage reduced to legal contract only. This leads to Leah conceiving Issachar, Zebulun, and a daughter, Dinah. Then God remembered Rachel and opened up her womb. Joseph, a son was born, which will later be followed by Benjamin. Those Jacob and his 4 wives become a dysfunctional family, placing children in the middle of a conflict and using these children as weapons, which we see many times today in custody battles and divorces. The second narrative is his negotiated separation from his father-in-law. Laban. Jacob's blessed prosperity after Joseph's birth. Jacob seeks to return to Canaan and has served and worked for Uncle Laban 14 years. Laban, recognizing that God blessed him because of Jacob, asks him to stay and negotiate wages. Jacob proposes his wages, keeping only the speckled, spotted, and dark-colored animals from Laban's flock. Laban agrees. But later that night, Laban secretly removes these animals in the flock immediately to skew the odds against Jacob. Jacob then uses a method involving peeled sticks at watering troughs and selective breeding of the flocks. While ancient beliefs suggested visual cues influenced offspring, the text emphasizes that God intervened. Genesis chapter 31, verse 12, which reads, "And he said, Lift up now thine eyes, and see, all the rams which leap upon the cattle are ring-straked, speckled, and gristled. For I have seen all that Laban doth unto thee, to prosper Jacob, allowing him to amass large flocks and significant wealth despite Laban's deception. Thus Laban, the master con artist in conned. Thus Jacob's flocks grow." Laban's name in Hebrew means white, and Jacob with white rods outsmarted Laban. In chapter 28, the Lord appears to Jacob and tells Jacob he will bless him. And does. God is increasing Jacob's flock. Jacob's home life is a mess. Jacob's work life is a mess. Yet from God, the worst dysfunctional family became the best blessings. God blesses the most unlikely. And that is good news for us.